Hey, so we're here, 832 sips. Another one.
We're hot. We're hot.
Got my coffee, got my
I got my
palm
buble.
My Timmy's.
yeah, we got Dean Venderman, Curtis Barossa, Mateo DeMuro, and we are here with April Pulak.
Yeah.
April Pulak, it's so nice to have you.
Thank you.
Hi, April. Thanks for joining us.
This is the first time for me, so go slow, okay?
Yeah,
Nice.
why don't you tell us a little bit about your teaching experience and just where you're from, and just give us, the 3-minute intro to April.
Well, I'm going to kick it down to about 30 seconds,
Perfect.
but I've been teaching since the last century. We'll just leave it that.
That's like the 1980s, I think.
No.
Hey, I'm all about the 80s.
And I really love my job. And this year I'm teaching keyboarding and a personal finance class. And there's been a lot of challenges with personal finance in particular because it only came into the curriculum last year in Manitoba. Wow, was that long overdue. And I'm certainly learning as much as the students as I work my way through it. And there's tons of online stuff there. And I'll be talking about that in the future if you guys are interested.
Or even now, and you used to be the tech go-to person, you told me.
Back in the day.
Yeah, before your keyboarding days.
Last century and earlier this century, I was like the SysOp, the system operator for all the labs, those things where all the computers were together at once. And, but I went through a sort of tech dark period as I was moved to different classes. I did teach middle years for a decade or so.
And now you've ascended to the high school level.
Man, it is like Club Med up here. Club Med for teachers.
Well, Dean, Dean and Curtis, you both teach or taught elementary, right?
So I taught grade 4-5 my first year. I'm actually only in my fourth year in education. So I've done 2 years as a coach, and then I did 1 year as a grade 4-5 teacher, and then I taught a grade 6-7 class, but I taught in a small rural school where I taught grade 1 to 10 and something. So it's crazy. Yeah.
I actually, most of mine's been high school. My first gig I had, I taught kindergarten to grade 8. I was a computer itinerant of all things. So I had kindergarten always right before lunch and right before they went home at the end of school because I had to put their mitts on and stuff. So I love and I have so much respect for kindergarten teachers. But I have been mostly high school my whole career. Then I had a stint when I worked downtown in our central office as a tech coach and as a tech consultant too. So, but I have so much respect for middle years teachers, especially from what I saw. I like what you said, April. High school can be a little bit of a Club Med compared to being in the trenches with the middle, especially the middle years for sure. So
I'm the only person who hasn't taught elementary.
But you have come across elementary. You go visit the elementary.
Yeah. And I gotta say, you know what? You might not be a real teacher until you've taught grade 8 or lower. Because I work my computer science classes. We go and we work with grade 6 to 8 teachers, and they work so hard. I'll be in their classroom one day and it's like a parent in under 10 minutes. I'm like, wow, they have so much more going on.
Yeah, so much more responsibility.
Yeah. And that's why I think, this is my theory, that elementary school teachers, and we were talking about this last time, and Dean and Curtis, they're more willing to integrate technology in their classrooms than high school teachers are.
Yeah.
Right? Because they are so overwhelmed at anything that can make their job easier. They're on board immediately. Whereas in high school, I think it's easier to stay in your little bubble. And
it's a lot more rigid in high school.
Yeah.
And I find it surprises me because the K-8 teachers are the ones with the least amount of discretionary time. But often initiatives are brought out at that K-8 level, which is baffling because they have such a lack of support and discretionary time. There's a little bit more rigidity. Honestly, I think it's because there's more dudes in high school. I believe that is a factor.
We're more. You think we're more likely to just be no.
Yeah.
We're more likely to say no.
There is a little bit more compliance, I feel, in the K-8 because of the predominance of females, and it is easier, in my opinion, to move things past that way first. Also, it's easier to introduce it to younger students first and then have it permeate through the high schools.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'd also add to that, though, in elementary school, you kind of have that flexibility to kind of do interdisciplinary. So you can have your social and your English class kind of at the same time. So if you're doing a project, you can spend like a whole morning on it and work it into other parts of your curriculum too. So I think there's a little bit of flexibility with elementary teachers in that, and they're always looking for a new way to motivate students, where I find sometimes high school teachers, this is the way I've done it for 20, 30 years. This is the way it's always going to be done. That's why this whole thing that's going on right now is really rocking a lot of people's worlds that I work with, because they're so used and set in their ways and their environment that there's no flexibility in it. So it's an interesting commentary on what's happening today, in my opinion.
Yeah, I do find the high school more of a delivery, and the K-8 more adaptive for sure.
Well, and you got the kids in high school for like an hour.
Yeah.
So like, and I know because I went through this struggle with my grade 11 and 12 comp sci class. Like when we did our Wakelet stuff, it was like none of their other teachers were doing something like that. So it was like everything was from scratch.
Yeah. And
I got the 1 hour with them. So like just even introducing them to it, like it just took forever. Whereas I could see in like a K-8 class, it's like, well, yeah, I'm going to combine, like you have those kids all day.
Yeah.
And all year long. So it's like, yeah, I'm going to just combine 2 or 3 of my blocks together, and we're going to just focus on this.
Yeah.
And then the kids are going to know it, and I'm going to have them from September to June.
Yeah.
Versus high school where it's like, okay, I have them for September to January. And and then those kids are gone, and then I get a brand new bunch, and I'm like, okay, if I do the same thing again with Wakelet, I'm like, I got to reintroduce it all over again halfway through the year and start from scratch.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot more flexibility in the K-8 for sure.
Well, the K-8 teachers seem to work well together too. Like the grade 6 teacher would say, yeah, I'll cover your phys ed class if you cover this class. Like I find there's a lot more collegiality going on in elementary schools from my observations, that, if you want to try something special, there's another teacher that you can collaborate with, where in high school you're kind of stuck in that hour, and it's almost impossible sometimes to be flexible like that. Like say, oh, I can only get this guest speaker in at 9 o'clock, but my class is at 1 o'clock. In high school, you can't do it, right? But in elementary, you might be able to flip-flop something and make it work.
Well, I do notice since coming to high school that I rarely cross paths with other teachers, even adjacent to me in the building. I mean, I'm connected with Mateo because we have literally a door between our rooms.
We have a giant window and a door.
So I can see him teach, I can hear him teach, I can walk over, I can ask him stuff, and we use that to our benefit. We're supporting each other all the time. But if it wasn't for that physical setup, I would not be talking to anyone, which is, that was a big shock to my system coming from teaching grade 8. At least in the K-8, there was recess. We all had an opportunity, should we choose, to cross paths, and that really cultivated, small though it was, but it happened twice a day, that collegiality that is the large part compared to K-8 almost absent, apart from special circumstances.
I never thought of that, because I work really closely with Sue.
Yeah.
But I have to try a lot harder, and we are literally right next door to each other. It's just that the wall and the space across the hallway, and the fact that like every hour you're switching kids.
Yeah, it's much more rigid. It's kind of lonelier in terms of.
Whereas with you, I'll literally be teaching, and I'll just walk through the door, and I'll be like, "Hey, April."
Yeah, we have an ongoing conversation.
We can chat, and I'm like in my class with my kids, and you're in yours, and we can still chat, and then we end up talking about whatever techie stuff.
Yeah, and it makes the time pass. It's a comfort to know like there's someone around that has got your back. And that's also the case in the K-8 realm, where, aside from the situation, that's not necessarily the case unless you go hail someone specifically. And usually that's the office.
Yeah, and you don't want to switch classes with me. Like in high school, you're a content area specialist. Like I can't just be like, oh yeah, I'll teach your physics class and you teach my computer science or grade 12 pre-calc class. Yeah,
it wouldn't go well.
So what are some ways, like how can we support getting like high school teachers to work together? Like how could we provide that time?
Well, I think, I'm reluctant to embrace and endorse this specifically, but we are doing RTI in our school. Are you guys familiar with that?
Like we have an RTI, like a response to intervention. Like that's what ours stands for.
With our occasion, at least historically, what we've done is people in grade groups have met together once a week for an hour.
Yeah.
And now that is kind of micromanaged in their expectations. I wish they would just let us go and, do what we need to do, find out what we need to find out from each other in that hour. But it is very micromanaged.
I think eventually that was the intention, and it kind of got kiboshed or whatever. But
well, every time we expend time, they always want results, and they. Bottom line is I feel they don't really trust us to produce results without micromanaging how we get there. But the truth is, if they would just give us goals that they want us to achieve, we would get there probably in the most efficient, best customized way that suits our particular position. With the micromanaging of delivery and expectations, it kind of just doesn't pan out as being authentic and specific to teachers' needs.
I think we need stuff like this where it's just like, here we are, 4 teachers, like just chatting. Like there's no agenda.
Exactly.
Like we didn't write down any questions. I didn't know we were going to talk about RTI.
Just came up.
But then like we end up sharing like resources or insights together. That's what happens when you and me talk.
Yeah.
Like a week ago when we were chatting about like the struggles you were having, like switching to online learning. Completely informal, not planned, and it was a great conversation. I think we both walked away with like some insights. Yeah.
Definitely. Well, we have like professional learning communities, and then within that too, we have COPS, community of professional learners. So we try to do that. We don't, and even within our school, we have a PLC. Then our division tries to have these COPPs. But even it's kind of an interesting though. What happened this year is our local agreement allowed for people to take a non-contact day with students off.
Wow.
So the days we would have our staff meeting days and that's PLC days and what have you, a teacher could take off, basically no questions asked. So all this PD that we could have had and that basically had half the school gone, like for example, we were supposed to have one on the Friday before the long weekend in May. Like if you could take that day off and have an extra day to get outside and do gardening or do some golfing, no questions asked, you take that. So there'd only be 10 people maybe in the school if they already used them from other times and that. So we try, but I find we have a thing with our technology called Regina Catholic Schools Connect Educator Program. And within our Connect Educator Program, we do a lot of working, together on different things with technology, and that's K-12, and we have Skype meetings monthly, and you're responsible for making lesson plans or doing an artifact, like doing a podcast or an interview like this. So I think in our tech community inside our division, we have a really good model for PD, but once you get outside of that, I wish we had maybe a different model that would work for people a little bit better. But people definitely want the freedom to kind of work on whatever they want to work on, what they see they would need in their classroom rather than have it macro managed, for sure. I could echo that for sure. It's part of the learning process.
I just want to remark about the vocabulary we're using. RTI probably should be more specifically using professional learning communities, the PLC reference, for when we're getting together and trying to hammer out curriculum outcomes. Yeah, that is really where I want the trust issue to evolve, where they do a lot of micromanaging, and it would just be better if they said, here are your goals, and give us some guidelines, of course, but let us go to it on our own, however we see fit.
At the beginning of the year, do you guys have to do a form? Like we have a C2PG form, which is a commitment to professional growth form that we have to do at the beginning of the year and submit it to our administration. So within that, there's a variety of goals. Like we have a faith-based goal because we're a Catholic school, but we also, one of them was like a tech-based goal that you'd have throughout the year based on the ISTE standards. And then that way you look for resources and, mentors and different things to try to meet your goals. Is that something you guys do as well?
We have, like, I know our schools, we do the schools have, I think they're called SLPs, and they're just like a school learning plan. And so they come up with something that's aligned to our like big Saskatchewan goals. So if it's on like writing or math or reading something, they try to align it that way. But it would be kind of nice for teachers to develop kind of, and I guess we do in some sense, yeah, teachers do develop their own goals, but it would be kind of nice to develop like a school goal, just to develop more of a relationship. I wish that's something that our division could probably do better, for sure.
And in our division, I don't think we have anything so formal.
Well, I can speak to historically in the K-8 realm, reflects what you guys have just mentioned, that we had goals, and often it was literacy or numeracy. In the high school realm, it depends what principal is in.
Yeah, it's more
depends what superintendent is in.
It's more left at it kind of comes down more from the top. Although I know a lot of the teachers that I'm friends with have their own personal goals. Like they're like, this year I want to do this or that in my classroom. But there's no formal process where we actually write it down and submit it to anyone. It's
that does exist here, but just not in our division.
We have school initiatives every September. It's like, hey, here's what we're working on as a school.
Yeah, it's more top down. Recently, it's been more top down on those sort of initiatives like RTI and PLCs, stuff like that.
And a lot of them are good initiatives.
More homogenization, I like to call it.
Yeah, I'm liking more this is it. I would have never known that we would have went this route. Mm-hmm. It's interesting talking to you guys, Dean and Curtis, because I think it's good to empower individual teachers by letting them write down their goals. Because you're more likely to do something when you write it down and it's been shared publicly.
Well, and when it's your own goal that is customized to your needs.
Yeah, well, that too, but just the act of writing it down. And then knowing that you've shared it with someone, like your school division or your principal or your colleague, you're more likely to follow through.
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing to that is that our principal is asking, what supports do you need to meet your goal? So not only are you writing down your goals, okay, do you need a day off with somebody who uses Wakelet because you really want to learn how to curate that because you're doing that? So I'm going to get you a day with Mateo, and he's going to take you down Wakelet, and there's some monies for that. Or if it's something where you have a brand new curriculum, maybe you need to go for some kind of PD, right? Or find some online PD, so or connect you with the consultant or that type of thing. So not only do you write down your goal, you figure out what supports that you need to get to where your goal is at. So I think that's pretty cool.
That's awesome. I think we should bring that forward as because they're always talking about how can we do PD better.
Yeah, this does exist in our realm, like I said, just not in our school. But I'm going to take a wild guess why it's not happening. First of all, is because initiatives are now coming top down, like RTI and PLCs. And secondly, that's because those initiatives have mopped up a huge amount of dollars. We're talking PD in various places in the States. We're talking major conferences with big money, big name people flown in from the States to deliver. And, with having teachers and autonomy over the PD, that takes some discretionary funds that, they can expend.
Well, there's lots of support. It says it would be nice if there was some push to be like, hey guys, we want you to do this stuff.
I was going to say, I think, credit to you for taking the initiative on a lot of stuff. But the aspect I think that's missing there is the relationship with a mentor type person where you can say, hey, I want to do this, and they can sort of give you ideas and say, why not this? Hey, I can help you do this. Yeah. And so that component, even though we've got the financial support in that small area, that component of mentorship is not built into our system.
Yeah, and I think that's the case in a lot of places. I mean, part of the reason that I started chatting with Dean and Curtis was for this the mentorship support. Yeah, because you guys have done and seen so much that when that's part of why we started this was to share this expertise. So
I always like finding out what's going on in other divisions and other provinces.
Oh yeah,
just to get perspective and hey, is this a good deal? Could we do better? Or or is this not so bad? So it's interesting to hear.